the work-life balance is a lot better. And you have to really build that base and network and get your foot in the door. I feel like there's quite an even split between 1, 2, 3.
Hi guys.
Hi guys. 1, 2, 3. Hi guys. Welcome back to our first video in 2025.
Yeah, I hope you all had a good holiday. I've forgotten what I was going to say. Hope you had a good holiday and enjoyed your time off. If you weren't, then deepest condolences.
No. So this year we're hoping to make more YouTube videos, more content for you to help you move to Australia just like we did. So today's video is all about applying for jobs here in Australia. We'll talk you through different ways you can do this, the best ways, the best advice that we can give you based on our experience.
Yeah, which is Queensland and the Sunshine Coast.
So the first thing that we want to talk about is the fact that we live on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, and this is a really high in demand area. A lot of people are now moving here, especially after COVID. It's a very popular place to live, which is great because it means that we've chosen the right place to live.
Yeah.
However,
it's very hard to find it, or it's very competitive to find a job here because it's very sought after.
so you'll find lots of jobs advertised, but there's also hundreds of applicants for some of those jobs. So it can be a little bit tricky. It depends what kind of job you're looking for, what sector, what kind of contract type you're looking for as well. That will all affect how many people apply for it. But we know that the sunny coast is very tricky to kind of, at least from our experience, to find a job.
A permanent job.
Also, closer to the coast is a lot more difficult, isn't it? Because that's where majority of the population live.
So the second point is the work culture, and that, I think, has been probably one of the biggest differences we've noticed. It's a lot more chilled, a lot more slower pace.
I think in Australia, the work-life balance is a lot better, and I think working each day is a lot slower paced, which takes some getting used to, whereas in England it's very fast paced, very full on.
Squeezing you for every penny.
It felt like that, didn't it, at times? But it's something that you have to get used to, really, is that slower pace, which is great if you're working here in Australia and you're in it, because you can take your time a little bit more and actually kind of do your work in a more thorough way, I suppose, because you've got more time to do that.
Yeah, not burning yourself out, but on the flip side of that, it can be a bit slower to get responses for jobs, so there is like a double-sided edge to it. Obviously, if you're in work, it's great. If you're looking for work, it might be a bit frustrating.
That's true, because sometimes they take a bit longer to kind of get back to you and do that whole recruitment process, right?
Yeah.
We found, I would say it took about probably 6 weeks on average from when I applied for a job to receiving an offer for the job. But again, it can vary depending on where you go for and what kind of sector you're working for too.
Yeah, that's just our experience and what we've found so far.
So we came over here on a 190 visa through the skills shortage list, I can never say that, through teaching, because I was a teacher in England, and it's meant to be in demand here, which it is in some areas. However, obviously on the Sunshine Coast, it's a highly sought after area, so there are not as many teaching opportunities here. I've found, or I've heard also, that if you do more CRT work, so casual relief teaching, which is the same as supply work, you are more likely then to be offered a contract. They like to see you in person, in action, see what you're like teaching, so you're more likely to get offered that. Also, you're more likely to get a teaching job in more regional areas, so the further inland you go, the more likely you are to get a job offer there, because obviously less people have less desire to live further away from the coast. So I think it's like 98% of the population of Australia live along the coast, which is huge.
It's crazy.
So yeah, that's something to consider when moving over here, especially if you've got a skilled job. Just kind of research the different areas and where you're more likely to get jobs or not, if that's something that's important. You can even try different states, and perhaps we're just talking about obviously Queensland, Sunshine Coast, but I know that if you go further north up Queensland, you're more likely to have job offers there.
So coming from England, the way you apply for jobs here is slightly different, we've found, at least here in Queensland. I'm not sure about other states, but it feels very much like going back in time. They tend to prefer you hand your CV in person, or have a phone call, or just even walk in and have a chat. As obviously in England, you just go on a job site, apply, and you hear back within a week or two, and then it sort of progress from there. But here it's a bit more old schooly and in person, isn't it?
Even though obviously you can apply online, and that's how we found our jobs, is online on the job advertisement websites. So you obviously can do it that way, and a lot of companies choose to do it that way, but they do also consider you if you send your CV in via email, even if there are no job advertisements. Sometimes they might offer you a job or just keep your CV for when they do have a job, and then they'll just give it to you rather than paying for the advertisement fees. So it makes sense really. Or give them a call if you see a job advert, give them a ring and say, I've seen this job advert, I'm really interested, please can you consider me? And they're more likely to kind of give you that job, I suppose, or the offer. I guess you're just leaving a bit of an impression and kind of introducing yourself.
Yeah, and we've heard a lot of people have success this way, so it does work. I think it is probably the preferred method.
Yeah.
A lot of it is also who you know, so networking is quite important as well.
Which can be so hard to do, especially when you've just moved here and you don't know anybody. You have to really build that base and network and get your foot in the door. I've also heard that if you're working for an Australian company for a few months, that looks good on a CV if you then want to go on to something else. It's all about sort of who you know, making those connections.
And if you're really struggling to find a job but you want to keep yourself busy, you can volunteer. There's Seek Volunteer as well, and that will allow you to sort of help a good cause and also get some experience working for a company, which then will give you references.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There's a volunteer section on there.
Well, no, there's Seek Volunteer, it's a separate thing.
Oh, it's a separate to Seek, so you have Seek and then Seek Volunteer.
Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, if you're struggling for references or not able to sort of find any actual paid work at the time, that might help boost your chances of getting work, and you're helping a good cause.
So Australia is renowned for the work and holiday visa. A lot of people come here for a little while to kind of experience Australia, and obviously they have to kind of work at the same time to get a bit of money. So there's heaps and heaps. I just said heaps.
You did? Far out.
That's such an Australian thing to say. Does that mean I'm Australian now?
Maybe getting there.
I can't believe I just said that. That just came out. I said that naturally, Mike. I was waiting for the day where I'd say that naturally. What was I saying? I got thrown off.
Heaps and heaps of casual.
Oh yes, there are heaps. There's heaps and heaps of I can't say it now. There are lots of casual work opportunities here, which suit some people down to a T. So especially if you're traveling, you can just pick up casual work here and there. You can pick and choose the days you work, and it's really good for that, isn't it? And some people prefer it because you get paid a bit more for the casual work, but obviously you don't get benefits such as sick leave, holidays, that kind of thing. So it kind of balances out, I suppose.
Yeah, but permanent contracts tend to be a bit more on the rarer side here, I think. There's a lot of fixed term and casual, like Teresa said.
I don't know whether sort of companies like to get you on a short-term contract or fixed-term contract to see what you're like, and then perhaps later down the line offer you a permanent contract. It depends on the place, on the company, on the sector, the job. Obviously there are permanent positions, but you do just have to look for those. It's just from our experience, there's a lot of temporary and casual, but we're brand new here, aren't we? So we're trying to get our foot in the door and then see where it takes us.
Yeah, we're not sure if this is like completely the norm or not, but coming from England, it's always permanent most of the time. It's very rare to have a casual job. So it's very strange.
And I think in England, if you had a short-term contract, often that is when your contract would end. Yeah. As far as I'm aware from experience and talking to people, that often it's not extended. Whereas here, if you have a short-term contract, from what I hear again from people, is that often it is extended. Yeah, it's just something to get used to and get your head around, but it's worth knowing about it and noting it.
Let us know if like this is just a normal thing and people live like this day to day, or
there are of course permanent contracts out there. I feel like there's quite an even split between your permanent contracts and your temporary contracts, plus loads of casual work that is available, which is also great because then if you find yourself out of work, it's quite easy just to pick up casual work. But again, you might have to change the sector and the job that you're doing. So, but it's nice because there are options, I suppose.
Yeah, and I mean, casual work's good, but you're never guaranteed hours, which is also something to consider.
Yeah, it depends what your lifestyle is and what you're doing when you're here and what you want.
It is. So another thing to consider is the visas you're on, because they will dictate what kind of work you can do and for how long as well. I think with the work and holiday visas, if you're from the UK, you don't have to do the 88 days farming or construction work, but if you're from other countries then you do, so there's that to consider.
but just double check what your specific visa requirements are.
Yeah.
But there's also, if you're on a working holiday visa, you can only work for the same company for 6 months at a time. So there's different restrictions depending on your visas. So just always double check the visa requirements.
Yeah, and if you're on a permanent visa, then there's no restrictions.
And another top tip is if you are searching for jobs or you just want to see what is out there, then have a look at these 3 different sites or apps. So we've got Seek and Jora and Indeed. I feel like they're the main ones that people use over here to find jobs.
Also Facebook, I've heard is really good. Posting your profile on there can also help you find work.
Yeah, on like specific Facebook groups that offer jobs. A lot of people, just advertise on there. Obviously it's free, isn't it, to advertise yourself or to advertise your role or the company. So it's always worth having a look at your local Facebook group page for jobs on there and just advertising yourself as well and what you can offer. So this is just based on our experience in Australia, in Queensland, on the Sunshine Coast. Obviously it's completely different in different states and in different areas of the country, so just bear that in mind. It depends where you go. That is a huge deciding factor of what happens, but hopefully we've given you a few top tips that you can take on board and hopefully use that to help you.
Yeah, and a little bit of an insight into what it's like.
So just comment below if you have any questions or message us on Instagram, and we're more than happy to help with any questions. And we'll see you in the next video.